Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah. Amma ba'd. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I hope you're doing well. In this video, I wanted to share with you 5 different books that you could study in order for you to understand the Hanafi Madhhab very well. Before I begin, however, I want to share with you the fact that these 5 books are for a student who is already at some level that they can understand traditional texts. This means that they understand Nahu and Sarf and perhaps have studied some other books, etc., so that they would be able to decipher what's in these books. Ideally, you should have asatidha and teachers for all of these books. However, if a person is a intermediate student capable of understanding texts, meaning perhaps they are a Shafi'i, they have studied some Shafi'i texts, or Hanbali, Maliki, etc., they understand how fiqh works to some degree, they would be capable of studying a work without necessarily having a teacher. Now, it doesn't mean that they're going to be better off than if they didn't have a teacher. It's just that they're capable of studying a different madhab now because they have experience with another madhab. If that's your situation, then I want to share with you some books that can help you do that. Also, you can watch this video if you are a person who is just beginning, just to get a good idea of how you could study, inshallah, to become a stronger and better Hanafi, inshallah. So what I'm trying to cover here with these books is going to be the masail of the madhab, meaning all of the rules and also the principles, the usuls of the madhab, and giving you some kind of idea of how the madhab works. So 3 different aspects. There are more aspects to learn regarding the madhab, but that's what I'm trying to cover here. And inshallah, I can do that with 5 different books if you study these books well. And if you have a teacher for these books, all the better. Inshallah, you'll have a good understanding of the Hanafi madhab after this. The first book I want to share with you is Nurul Idah wa Najatul Arwah, written by Al-Imam Ash-Shurumbulali. Excellent work for a beginner in the Hanafi madhab. Oftentimes it's one of the first books that a Hanafi actually studies. So this edition I have here is a very beautiful edition. The tahqiq was done by Dr. Sheikh Said Baktash, Hafidhahullah. And I'll open it up and I'll show you some pages and show you how beautiful it is. He has the titles in red, and then he will have the text very clearly printed there with cream paper. And he even has some footnotes that act as a little bit of explanation when things are a little bit vague in the text itself. So really a good book for beginners in the Hanafi madhab. When I was studying, this was part of the syllabus, right? So we studied with a sheikh, with a teacher, in and out, through and through, covered multiple revisions of this book. Some of my classmates even memorized Nurul Idah and read it to the teacher. I was not among them. So Nurul Idah is excellent. It covers ibadat, meaning in fiqh you have, as you know, tahara, ibadat, and then you have munakahat, you have buyu', you have governmental law, mu'amalat, all of these kind of things. This only covers, we could say, 1/4 of fiqh, if not less. So tahara, salah, and that was the main part of Nurul Idah. In another video I can go over what happened in Nurul Idah and how Imam Shurumbulali wrote it. But that's the main things that are covered here. He will have some extra aspects later on in the kitab regarding zakat, but it's not the full ibadat. So this is a great introduction for a beginner student in the Hanafi madhab. Now, I said 5 books. I'm not counting shuruh and commentary. So I'm going to share another commentary of Nurul Idah, but I'm sharing it in let's say chronological order, the order wherein I would like for you to study these books. The second book, so after you finish Nurul Idah, you have a good understanding of ibadat, salah, zakah, sawm, these aspects, tahara. Now you're kind of getting better at understanding how the madhab, how the scholars of the madhab write. Then you go back in time. So Nurul Idah was more mutaakhir, later on. You go back into the 400s and you got Imam al-Quduri's Mukhtasar. Mukhtasar al-Quduri. I put a cover on the kitab, and thus, it's extremely reflective. So I'm trying to show you without a glare. You can see, let's take off my computer's thing there. There you can see better now. Also, a very beautiful edition by the same Sheikh Dr. Said Baktash. He's doing tahqiqat of a lot of the Hanafi works in a very beautiful ikhraj, very beautiful presentation. Before these books, and you guys can see, inshallah, some of the videos that I've done on Nurul Idah, you can see like the old prints that we used to use when we were students. But now, alhamdulillah, we have these very beautiful editions. So, Mukhtasar al-Quduri is like one of the most famous books in the Hanafi Madhhab. It's a foundational work, such that if a person wanted to memorize a matan in fiqh, a text in fiqh, as classical scholars used to do, Mukhtasar al-Quduri would be one of those that would be on the list. You would choose between Mukhtasar al-Quduri or Kanzu al-Daqa'iq or al-Mukhtar, one of those mutun. But this definitely would be one of those kitabs. So excellent book. This covers all of the chapters of fiqh, the majority of the chapters of fiqh. So what you did not get in Nurul Idah, you're going to get the chapters of marriage, the chapters of business, the chapters of governmental law. All of these different kind of things are going to be found in Mukhtasar al-Quduri. Along with Mukhtasar al-Quduri, and like the caveat, or I should say, with every one of these books, you should understand that it's always better to study with the Shaykh. The Shaykh will take the commentaries, all of the extra information, present it to you in a very subtle, very easy to understand way. He's going to give you principles. He's going to give you the mufta bihi, meaning sometimes you have a masala in one of these books, but that's not the actual madhab, the way we practice in today's time. He's going to give you all of that. So you can never replace having a teacher. Studying on your own is not like studying with a teacher. However, studying on your own is still extremely beneficial. With Nurul Idah, if you don't have a ustad, then inshallah you should use Al-Lubab fi Sharh al-Kitab. Al-Lubab fi Sharh al-Kitab. I have a beautiful Turkish edition here. 2 volumes. By Al-Imam Al-Ghunaymi Al-Madaini, or Al-Maydani, I'm sorry. And he passed away in 1298, whereas Imam al-Quduri passed away in 428. Right, so this book here is a very brief commentary on Nur al-Idah. I'm sorry, on Mukhtasar al-Quduri. What you'll have is on the top, and I'm going to show you soon, you're going to have Mukhtasar al-Quduri on the top of the page. Then you have a very broad line. Underneath that, you're going to have Mukhtasar al-Quduri again, however, now in red ink. And then the black ink next to it is going to be the commentary of Al-Lubab. Then all the way on the bottom, you're going to have footnotes from the muhaqqiq, from the one who, put the book together. So take a look there. On the top, Mukhtasar al-Quduri. Then you have that broad line there, demarcating the end of the matan, the text. Underneath that, you have the commentary. So the red is the same thing on the top. It's Mukhtasar al-Quduri again, but the black after that, in between, is going to be Al-Lubab. This is the commentary. And then all the way on the bottom, another line demarcating the footnotes there. So this book is really good because not only is it a commentary, but he gives you usually the mufta bihi. He will give you what is the fatwa in the madhab. So sometimes you'll have something in Quduri, and he'll say that this is actually not the madhab, we practice on this other opinion. Or he will mention multiple opinions in Mukhtasar al-Quduri, and he won't tell you which one is the madhab. Here he tells you what the madhab is. So really good to have this along with Mukhtasar al-Quduri. So after you studied Nurul Idah, you got the ibadat generally down. You study Mukhtasar al-Quduri and you get pretty much the entire madhab in brief. You got al-lubab, so you got a good understanding of how like shuruh work. And this is a very concise sharh. There are more deeper ones and ones that go into extreme depth. And you got the muftabihi. You can go back and get more intricate knowledge regarding ibadat only, and that is a commentary on Nur al-Idah. So I mentioned before that I have a commentary on Nur al-Idah here for you guys, and I didn't say to do it right with Nur al-Idah. That's for a reason. This commentary is deeper than Al-Lubab, the previous commentary that I showed you. This commentary goes in quite some depth because Nurul Idah is just ibadat, acts of worship. And these two full volumes are a commentary on those acts of worship. So you're going to have a lot of detail here. This is called Hashiyatu Tahtawi ala Maraqil Falah. So the author of Nurul Idah wrote a commentary to his own book that is called Maraqil Falah. Right? So Imam Shurumbulali, he wrote Nurul Idah, the first book that I showed you. He then wrote this commentary. There's some more, some detail in that regard. I am aware of that. I'm just trying to simplify things here. So he wrote Maraqil Falah. Then Imam al-Tahtawi, he wrote a hashia, like a gloss on it, extra info. So this book is jam-packed. It's only ibadat. So you got tahara, salah, saum, zakat. And here, so on the top he has Nurul Idah, then you have the broad line, then you have Maraqil Falah. Both of the top two sections are by the same author. Then you have a dotted line, and underneath that is Hashiyatu Tahtawi. So check it out. On the top, Nurul Idah. Thereafter, thereafter Maraqil Falah. Both top and second portion is done by Imam Shurumbulali. And then that third portion, that is Hashiyatu Tahtawi. That's the main aspect of this book. So you go back and you study Hashiyatu Tahtawi and you solidify, aspects of ibadat. That's all I'm going to mention for here. Of course, you need to solidify aspects of nikah, buyu', mu'amalat. That's a definite thing. But for a beginner step of the Hanafi Madhhab, you got a brief intro. You got the muftabihi through lubab. You solidified ibadat. The next stage would be to now go and check out those other commentaries. But we're going to stop here for masail. So that's enough, inshallah, for you to get to that intermediate level. Inshallah, you learn these books very well. You're going to be able to get there, inshallah. Now I want to share some books, 3 books, for you to kind of understand the madhhab, not the masail. Masail are like, this is permissible, this is impermissible, this is how you perform salah, this is this ruling, that ruling. We're not talking about that anymore. We're talking about the madhhab as a institution of mechanics to produce the masail of fiqh. How does it work? What are the mechanics of the madhhab? For that, I have 3 books here. First, المدخل إلى مذهب الإمام أبي حنيفة النعمان رحمه الله تعالى by الدكتور أحمد سعيد حوا. Right. So there's many books that can replace this book, but this is an intro into the Hanafi madhab. I'll read some of the aspects in the Fihris so that you can understand what this book is about. It goes over, firstly, he has the first chapter regarding Abu Hanifa and the Hanafi madhab. So what was the life of Abu Hanifa, his story, how he learned, who are his shuyukh, just, the whole biography of Abu Hanifa. The era wherein Abu Hanifa lived, his level of knowledge, what was Kufa like? That was where Imam Abu Hanifa lived. So what was Kufa like? What were the scholars in Kufa like? What was the methodology of the Kufan scholars as well as Imam Abu Hanifa? Who are the students of Abu Hanifa? What are the principles of Abu Hanifa? How did the Hanafi madhab grow? Who are the major players in the Hanafi madhab? The different levels of scholars within the madhab. How the madhab spread throughout the world, and what are the reasons why it spread. Thereafter, the scholar goes into a depth. So let's say the book is about 400 pages or more. About 100 pages go, or 150 pages, regarding what I just mentioned. Thereafter, like 300 pages or 200 pages regarding the usuls of the madhab, principles of the madhab, and it's called usulul fiqh. You can skip all of that because I have another book for you for usulul fiqh. Then all the way at the end, he has on page 339 onwards, مصادر الحنفية ومصطلحاتهم, the sources of Hanafi law and the terminologies for the Hanafis. So then he goes into different books of usulul fiqh, books of fatwa, books of Hanafi interpretation of Quran and Sunnah, all of these different kind of things, all in here. So in reality, you don't have to read the entire book, more like 150 to 200 pages of this. Thereafter, you can read this book for usulul fiqh. Now, when I was studying, we studied a really great book called Usulul Shashi, and thereafter some other books in usulul fiqh. And this would take the place of Usulul Shashi, this book that I'm about to show you. Usulul Shashi is really nice, though. I don't, unfortunately, have a copy of it. I don't know what happened to my copy. But I need to purchase another one. But this book here is Al-Mujaz fi Usul al-Fiqh, written by Sheikh Muhammad Ubaidullah Al-As'adi, right, by Darus Salam Publishers. It's a very beautiful cover. This is really nice, in my opinion. It is well organized. I'll show you how it looks like here. No cream paper here, but really nice. I hope they, make a new edition. This book also has like charts and stuff. Let me show you. So it like summarizes. It's a more contemporary work. This is not a classical work. If you want a classical work, then Usul al-Shashi is there, and all of the commentaries of Manar by Hafidhuddin al-Nasafi. So for instance here, you have like a nice chart. So he summarizes chapters, he gives you charts and stuff like that. What is Usul al-Fiqh? Usul al-Fiqh is legal theory. So it's not going to be like, okay, this is halal, this is haram. Rather, how do you know this is halal? How do you know this is haram? What level or ranking of the masala is it going to be? How do we interpret Quran and Sunnah? How do we look at Quran and extract rulings from the Quran? How do we look at hadith and extract ruling from hadith? All of these type of things. When do we use qiyas, like analogy? How does ijma' work? All of these different kind of things are found in the books of Usul al-Fiqh. And some books of Usul al-Fiqh also talk about why should you even follow an imam? Taqleed, that whole concept. So you'll find that in these books. So this is a great book for Usul al-Fiqh for the Hanafis. Again, should be studied with the Ustadh. I know I said I wouldn't mention that again, but I'm just going to keep doing that. Should be studied with the Ustadh, but if you're at a level where you've studied Usul al-Fiqh before, you can, for another madhab, you can study this. Inshallah, you'll understand it. But if you've never touched Usul al-Fiqh before, it might be a little bit too much. Usul al-Fiqh is one of those things that you probably need a ustad for. But again, many madrasas, they have this muqarrar, they have this as part of their syllabus. The last book I'm going to share with you, for you to understand the madhhab and how the madhhab works. Now, some of you who are Hanafis would say, okay, why am I mentioning all of these kind of books? And this last book is going to be a little bit more advanced. My reasoning behind this is that this book will allow a person to understand the mechanics of the madhab very well. And we should not reserve it for very high-level students only. Rather, students in their, let's say, third year, fourth year, who can understand Arabic, they can go ahead and learn this. That's how I feel about it. Of course, you're not going to be applying everything, and that is Usulul Ifta wa Adabuhu, written by Sheikh Mufti Taqi Uthmani, Hafidhahullah Ta'ala. Usulul Ifta wa Adabuhu. So, what is Usulul Ifta? It is basically how fatwas are passed in the Hanafi madhab. Now, this doesn't mean that you study this book and you start passing fatwas. That requires actual studying with a sheikh and practical application of all of these kind of things for a few years. What this book will actually let you know is how it's done. And there's nothing wrong with a person in their early, era of studying, learning how things are done. Again, you don't pass fatwas just by reading this book. So some of the contents and the chapters in the book, Al-Fatwa wa Khuturatuha. He starts by talking about the danger of giving fatwa, just saying any masala to a person. If you're wrong or if you didn't do your proper research, that has to be at the top of the mind of the mufti. Then he goes into a chapter, Manahijul Fatwa fi Salaf, how the early generations used to give fatwa. He goes into different terms. What is a mufti actually, and who was called a mufti, and when is a person ready to give fatwa? All of these kind of things. The next chapter he goes into Tabaqatul Fuqaha, the different rankings of the scholars of fiqh. So you have the fuqaha being like, okay, you have the highest level mujtahid, Imam Abu Hanifa. Then you have the mujtahideen that are connected to Abu Hanifa, like Abu Yusuf and Muhammad, etc. Then you have the other, Ashabul Takhrij, Ashabul Tarjih, all of these different kind of stages in the hierarchy of the Hanafi Madhhab. There's hundreds of ulama in the Hanafi Madhhab, so there's a hierarchy of the scholars there. Then he even goes into the Tabaqatul Fuqaha according to the Shafi'is. So how do the Shafi'is consider this? Thereafter, from page 151, he summarizes the principles of Rasmul Mufti. Rasmul Mufti is a very famous book written by the great scholar Imam Ibn Abidin. And he in there talks about like principles in giving fatwa. He summarizes those principles here. Then he goes into giving fatwa in it according to a different madhab. When can you do that? When is it not allowed? He goes into the changing of rulings due to the change in time period. So it's really good to understand how the madhabs are there. Some people think that the madhahib are just rigid rules set in stone. It's not like that. The madhabs are built in such a way that they can morph and change according to the necessities of the time. So when can that be done? There's principles for it. And then he goes into Ahkamul Ifta wa Manhajuhu, rules of giving fatwa and the methodology of doing so. So really great book written by Sheikh Mufti Taqi Uthmani. Should not be reserved for only students in the Ifta like Mufti program, but students who are, just doing this much. So that's all I got for you guys today. If you study all of this, inshallah, it would take a few years, maybe like 2-3 years, continuous study with a sheikh. Or if you're advanced, like I mentioned before, study it on your own slowly and then refer to a sheikh. At least have a Hanafi that you can refer to when you get stuck here and there. After this, inshallah, things are open for you. Now you can study the larger books in the Hanafi works. You can study commentaries. You can study more of the deeper commentaries of Usul al-Ifta or Usul al-Fiqh, all of these kind of things. So I hope you found this very beneficial. I want to thank everyone who has been loyal to the channel, watching all of the content. And I ask you to, if you're new to this channel, please do subscribe if you found it very beneficial. Share the content with your friends, family, or those who you think is going to be interested. Also, please do leave a comment. I really enjoy your comments. Jazakumullahu khairan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.